Hey guys, what's going on? Imaginary World here. Today I'm doing a video that someone in the comments requested. They wanted me to make a video on leveling. So yeah, basically I'm just going to be going over some tips and tricks for leveling your beats and your songs. Something I do want to say is that most of leveling is actually just how good your ears are. So it is going to take some training to get good at this, but I do have some tips that I think might help out a little bit. So let's go ahead and hop right in. Alright, so we got Ableton pulled up here. This is a beat that I made yesterday. It's up on my beat store under the name Murder in the Streets. I'll have it linked in the description, but let's go ahead and hear it. So we got a pretty clean and clear mix, and a lot of the clear, crisp sound of this comes from the leveling. Let's go ahead and get right into it with my first tip, which is group tracks that sound similar. So what I mean by this is basically what I have here with this drum bus. So if I solo it, we got our kick, clap, snare, and rim shot. These are our main drum sounds. I don't group my hats in here simply because of the way that I compress it. To me, it just doesn't make too much sense. But regardless, let's get into these drums. Let's hear how they sound together. So the reason why I have these group, other than the group processing that I have on this glue compressor, is the fact that what I can do is I can kind of level my drums to where they sound good. So, level my kick, my clap, my snare, my rim shot, all that kind of stuff to where they sound good throughout the beat. And then from there, when I have a good sounding group, well, I can collapse this and forget about all these faders down here. And now all I have is one fader to worry about. And now all I have to do is, obviously you don't want it soloed. So what I can do is I can find where the drums sound good in the mix. So you can just kind of dial in one fader instead of dealing with 4 or 5, maybe even more faders. If they sound good as a group, you can kind of dial it in. And then, of course, if you need to go back in, all you got to do is just open it up. Basically, that's what it comes down to, is it makes it a lot easier when you're in the mixing process. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is do not be afraid to reset. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, sometimes you just need a fresh start on your mix. Now, that doesn't mean you have to get rid of all your EQs and compression. Sometimes that is needed, and don't be afraid to do that either. I would definitely save a different version if you're going to go that far. But what my point is in saying that don't be afraid to reset on your faders is simple. Sometimes you need a fresh start. Now, you don't always need this. So don't do this every mix. Sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes you just dial in the mix while you're making the song. You dial it in perfect, maybe just a few adjustments here and there, but sometimes you really do need a fresh restart. The easiest way for me to do this is I click my first track, scroll to the end, click the last track, holding shift, and then drag the faders down. Now what this is going to do is if you keep dragging, it's going to drag all the faders all the way to the bottom. And this is great because now all of our faders at the bottom, when I click play, you're not going to hear anything. As you can see, we are playing. There's no audio coming through. So then what we can do is we can, you want to make sure you kind of deselect so you're not moving all the faders again. So then what we can do is we can just kind of dial this in. So you can start with, say, your pianos, get them to a desirable level. Say you don't want your piano to ever be louder than that. From there, you can build off that. So let's dial in the 808 now. And then from there, we'll move on to the drums. And this is another thing that's so great about the drum bus is we already had our drums exactly how we like them. So now all I have to do and then from there, you can go on and do your hats and yeah, so sometimes you need that. And now I don't do this very often, but when I do it, I usually end up with a better mix. All right, so my final tip number 3, it's going to be a really simple one. Don't really need Ableton for this one because really all it is you need to practice. This is not something you're going to get the first time. if I listen back on old beats, old songs that I was making, they sound terrible. And I didn't get it. I tried to EQ, I tried to do all this fancy stuff, and I didn't really know what I was doing with those, to be fair. But also at the same time, leveling is a really simple way. Let's say something's not cutting through the mix, try turning it up. EQs are great and sometimes you need them, but sometimes really all it takes is you just got to turn something up a little bit. So here are I have some suggestions written down on my screen of how I was able to get practice. The first easy one is mix for other people. Ask people if they want mixes. The way that I did this is I mixed for my friends. Now, to go into this, mix for free. Tell people you're mixing songs for free. This is great practice because there's very low stress. If they don't like it, it was free. They don't have to use it. But at the same time, you're getting practice on other people's music. Now, why is other people's music so important? Well, it sometimes can be tiring. Mixing your own music, you get really frustrated. And really what it comes down to is when you start mixing someone else's music, well, it's going to be a complete different story. They might make a complete different genre from you also. And that goes into number 2, try mixing other genres. Now, this is where things get kind of crazy, is when I started mixing other genres other than rap and electronic music, I started realizing a lot of these principles transfer over between genres, and then you realize your ears are just getting better. And so pretty much that's what it comes down to, guys, is just practice, and practice some more, and your ears will get better, and you will get better at mixing. Now, I know that's kind of a cop-out, kind of an easy way of ending the video, but to be honest, guys, if you just keep practicing your mixing, you will get better. And one of the best ways to do that is to mix other people's music for free. All right, and I got one last tip for you guys, just a quick one. When you're listening to music, listen with intent to learn. What I mean by this is, why do you like that mix? When you're listening, try and figure out what do I like about this mix? Is the bass smooth? Is the kick punchy? How did they achieve that? Think about that. Compare it with your mixes. What can you learn by listening to other people's music? There's a lot to learn there. So just keep that in mind next time you listen to some music. Anyways, that's going to be it for me today. If you guys enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a thumbs up. Leave a comment to suggest me some future video ideas. And then also go ahead and subscribe if this helped you out. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys have a great day. Thanks.